Cosmic here, and welcome back to another Set 2 spoiler video. Today we have PNZ featuring Vi, and I'm very excited to get into this card. I will admit, at first, I wasn't impressed. I kind of overlooked it, went to the actual cards, saw some cute possibilities, but then once I really started thinking about Vi and the different cards that you want to be playing with her, which are not typical for PNZ, I started to get really excited for the potential that this card has. So what does that sweet level up animation look like, and what card should you be playing with Vi in Set 2? Let's find out.
Face meet fist! Coming to save the day, or wreck it.
She's here. She's very interesting for what she does. A 5-cost 2/5 might not sound that exciting on paper, but I think a lot of people are kind of overlooking some of the key details on this and what makes it so good. So first off the bat, we kind of need to acknowledge it has both Challenger and Toughness right on it. So it's able to battle whatever card it wants, and it's going to be very hard to remove thanks to those built-in keywords. And 5 HP is just a good amount anyways. So the kind of farming, or AFK mechanic, whatever you want to call it, is a pretty unique one. While I'm in play or in hand, she's going to gain +1/+0 anytime you play another card, max of +8. So really what this means is, from a design perspective, you want to mulligan aggressively for it. You want to see this in your opening hand so that you have that full advantage of being able to, on turn 5, play it as a very reasonable threat, right? If you maybe draw this on 4, then play it on 5, if it's only, let's say a 3/5, it's maybe not that exciting. In that kind of same regard, if you're drawing this mid-game or late game, it's going to feel pretty awful in a lot of ways. So maybe you really have to build up a deck that's going to play into that level up condition, which is that you strike for 10 or more. So again, keeping in mind, this is going to work with things like single combat, whirling death, judgment even, which is insane. So there's quite a few ways that you can get in this extra damage. And the reason why I mentioned judgment here is because of this insane level up perk. So right, you do have to do a little bit of work to get there, and maybe we're going to discuss why here in a second, why Demacia or Noxus are kind of the key pairings, and PNZ really doesn't have the tools for what you might want. But when I strike a unit while attacking, deal 5 to the enemy Nexus. So based on things like Elise or Hecarim or Shark Chariot, the attacking just means that you select this unit, you go into a combat, it's going to pass back to priority, but then as soon as you pass into that blocker step, it's going to count as attacking. So Judgment should by all means work with this. Now, if all of set 1 is to tell us anything, Judgment is really more often as a defensive card, right? If you're thinking about Fiora, or just kind of the types of decks and when you're playing it, right? If you're going against like a Spider aggro list, generally you're playing it on 5 just to survive if you have it. So it is going to be difficult to get this to work, on a more offensive play. Now that said, I think you can still, as I mentioned, single combat, whirling death, there's going to be those more like in-battle tricks that will get the most value out of this. And 5 to the enemy Nexus is a lot, right? And then if you combine this with, let's say, Overwhelm, so you think about Might, right? And Noxus being kind of a very obvious pair here, this is a very powerful champion, and it's going to end the game, better be the turn after she levels up, because it's a very strong effect, right? And then if you think about PNZ, that's going to have things like Mystic Shot, Get Excited, just other ways to add burn on top of this. It's a very scary champion, and I think just from a power level perspective, I think we started off very, on the low end. I think Scouts will be good once we see their other cards, but just kind of, given the spoilers that we have and knowing that we're still only seeing half of all the cards spoiled for that region, I think in itself, this one has me the most excited now, and they just keep getting better. So I guess every video after this is going to be, well, I like this one more, but no, I mean, the fact that it's Challenger and Toughness, I think is just absolutely insane. It's very not PNZ. And again, I don't have a League background, so people tell me that this is very on character, on type for Vi, but for me, it's just like, I don't know why PNZ has this, but sure, I'm all aboard. So the other thing I like about this, right, is then we haven't seen a, let's think about from a more meta perspective. We haven't seen a PNZ Demacia list really, or a PNZ Noxus, other than just like the hyper burn, right, where people are being like Teemo, Boom Crew Rookie, like you have that side of it. But this really plays into more of like this mid-range kind of grindy strategy where Vi is really going to close out the game in a quick manner. So yes, it could probably still go in those more aggressive strategies. It's probably fine for it. It might slot out like the Teemo, right? That's the original champion people were playing. I think that's a fair swap. So probably that deck still fine. I get it. It all holds together. And right, if you have this early on in your hand and you're playing this more low curve aggressive deck, she's very quickly going to get +4, +5 in your hand without trying, right? So that could be very good for itself, but I like this for what it does as potentially a new meta. deck popping up, right? Because that's always what we'd hope for. Set 2, other than getting a whole new region, which is obviously going to bring more decks to it just by adding 63 new cards. It's always nice to see that we're going to have these new styles, right, come up. So my expectation, right? So this doesn't go with Scout, and that's all we've seen so far with Demacia. But I think this does mean we might see that within those 5 other Demacia cards, something else that can go with this. And then again, right, just Demacia has barriers, so barriers a very fine thing to combo with this as well, because you want this to stay alive. So think about it as a very different kind of Fiora, but kind of the same principle, right? You want to be an all-in, you want to protect her, make sure that she's hitting multiple units. And in the case of, say, Judgment, right, it's going to be an OTK, right? So Fiora, kill 4 things, you automatically win. This one, you just hit 4 things. It doesn't matter, right? If they live or they die, you just hit them, and you're good to go. Obviously, deny, bouncing effects. You know, Judgment still has the same weaknesses. That doesn't change. But I see an area where this just gives you a couple different lines of play that you might not have had previously, and I'm very much looking forward to that and very thankful how much this champion has the potential to add. Again, when I first saw this, and I was just like at face value for all these spoilers, I was kind of like, whatever, I guess, right? It's PNZ. They're more of the, we're not strong and flashy like Demacia or do those types of cool things, but instead have all these like unique built-in synergies where you really have to start to play the deck or kind of figure out how those different pieces work together. I love it for that reason, but I think every time we come around to PNZ spoilers, people are going to be like, at first, whatever, it's not that good, but then maybe if it's an hour later, if it's a day later, whatever it might be, you go, oh wait, but you know, that could go really well with this other card that, you know, hasn't seen a lot of play, or people really weren't, you know, using this in this type of deck. So it could be really good for that. And I think for that, as just like someone who's brewing and doing content, I'm thankful. So I really love this. The rest of these spoilers, I'm kind of not as excited about, but the last thing here is her champion spell, which again, not 100% confirmation, but if this isn't her champion spell, I don't know, I'll eat paper, right? It has to be. It has the gauntlet, has everything you'd want. Vault Breaker, 3-cost burst, which is nice. It only gives +2, which is slightly interesting, but it gives you a fleeting copy. So like Noxian Guillotine, right, has an effect where you can just keep cycling it turn after turn. And I don't think this is necessarily where you want to be with it, but the first thing that came to my mind is Heimerdinger, right? You play a turret, you hold this in your hand, you play out the turret, go to combat, you just cycle up, buff that one elusive turret over and over and over, and then if they answer that, you have, you know, 3 or 4 more turrets in your hand that you can just drop after. Now, again, if they're playing like a more ping-heavy type of deck, then obviously you want to go wide instead of going tall. Tall just means you put all your stats and all your buffs into one card. So there's obviously, you have that flexibility. Now, is this going to make the cut? I'm not sure, but anytime I see a 3-cost spell, I'm like, all right, Heimerdinger, how can you use this? And, you know, what's the payoff? So even late game, right, if you play Heimerdinger on like 9 or something, right, and then you combo off with this card, this one card can generate multiple turrets for you in a turn. So it's very good for that, where, you know, Flash of Brilliance might get you 1, sometimes 2. So Vault Breaker, I think, is interesting. I'm not sure if it's going to find a home where it's maybe a dedicated 3 of per se, but I definitely appreciate this for her champion spell, because then again, it's going to help combo her up and make sure that she strikes for that 10 that she needs. And, you know, just getting, in this case, +4, if you think about it, you play her on 5, then you play this on 6, you know, you're getting over half of the way there just by being able to play this and combo it off. So yes, you spend all your mana, and there's some plus and minuses there, but overall, very solid. Again, I think Vi is in a pretty good spot, and I'm not sure exactly where she's going to go. We have to wait till the 27th for the full spoilers, but absolutely, I'm loving it so far. And I knew there was going to be more of like this bruiser, battler, beefy type of card, and I'm very excited to see the Runeterra team deliver on that. Going into some of the not so fantastic spoilers, but at least have, you know, some game to them, is Veteran Investigator. So 2-drop, 3-2, you know, just okay stat-wise for more aggressive strategies, but when I'm summoned, all players draw 1. So, right, at least from a high level, these next few cards you're going to see, they're all going to play into Vi's theme, because they want you to play multiple cards per turn, right? Give her all those bonuses, but kind of by themselves, they leave a little bit to be desired in this case. So this can be good for a 3-attack 2-drop, right, in some cases, but the idea is if you're a control deck, you're giving your aggro opponent more cards. That's usually pretty bad. This just trades 1 for 1 in itself, because generally you can't keep this alive and block 2 things with it. It finds a very awkward spot. Now, Teemo players, unironically, I know, might be excited, because then that does force them to draw extra puff caps. Now, is that going to be some new tier 1 deck? Unlikely, but it's cool that it does have that opportunity for you, and it is in PNZ, so there's no you know, additional cost there, and since it's in your starter region that you need for Teemo. So, you know, I'm rating this one pretty low, at least of right now, but I'm sure somebody will find a use for it in some deck. Beyond there, we have Patrol Wardens. This one I'm a little bit more excited for, right? So if we think about those more aggressive static cards, when I'm drawn, I cost 1 less this round. So it does have a little bit of that RNG behind it, but if you can get a 2-drop 4/3, you know, the comparable one to this is either you're going to discard a card or play this at maybe 3 instead, right? There's a card in set 1, Dredger. Depending on the deck you're playing, right? If you're playing the discard out aggro and you want a 4/3, obviously play the one that lets you discard a card because it's going to help you level up Jinx. But if you're just trying to play a more resource-driven, I want to play this card as a 2 and not have to ruin anything else in my hand, then this one wins out. So, you know, it's another one of those cards. Is it going to see play? I'm not entirely sold on it, but it is good stats for what it can do. If you play for a 2-drop, you're feeling great. You're playing for as a 3-drop, maybe not so much, but you can still play it in some situations. So I think this is all going to go again to playing into a more aggressive Vi deck, and we really have to wait to see what those other 5, either Noxus or Demacia spoilers, are going to be. I think it can find a home, maybe. I'm not terribly excited for it, but I know I can at least appreciate, right, that a 2-drop 4/3 is good value. I mean, I don't think anyone else could argue against that. And then kind of the interesting combo, the least non-champion, this is what I'm most excited for, right? So Insightful Investigator. When you play a 2-cost card, draw 1 fleeting. So that does mean you will draw a card off the top of your deck and it gains fleeting. So yes, does mean if you get, I guess, low roll and you hit a 9-drop, it's going to feel bad. You're probably going to burn a card. You lose your important card. It is what it is. However, if you kind of take a step back and you think about it, right, this card opens up the opportunity of, say, things like Mystic Shot. I'm just using that because it's like a prime example, that you can somehow cycle this burn, draw a bunch more cards, and dig through your deck a bit faster. So this definitely reads to me as more of a combo-driven, late game, high payoff, draw a bunch of cards type of strategy. But they did give us some of these other ones as seen here, the gotcha, right? So when draw costs 2 less this round, deal 3 to a unit. So we already have a new card that's being added into this kind of theme, right? And then if you think about Karma, it does count as playing for that. So you do get multiple draws, multiple effects. There's certainly some opportunities here for you to high roll that regard. So not that, you know, Karma and Ezreal decks really needed anything. And I'm not saying that this makes the cut in the traditional list we see today, but just in general for what this might allow as the sets go on, as we get more 2-cost spells, it could certainly do some pretty crazy things, especially with the way spell mana banking works. I can see this definitely going the distance. Is it going to be good in, you know, set 2? We have to wait to see what the other, you know, key spells are. We haven't seen that many cost 2 spells. And then, right, we're getting all of Bilgewater, which might have a 2-cost spell as well. So a lot more to be seen with this card. You know, sure, as of right now, I'm not that excited for it, but I think there's something to be said about cards that come out in spoiler season that say, hey, it's very early on, I don't like this right now, but what happens if we get something that does X in a 2-cost card, right? Then suddenly that conversation changes a little bit and you can start to see the value in this. Because again, right, drawing cards is very, very powerful in any card game, but especially in Runeterra where draw effects are so limited or very high costed, right? If you think about Progress Day or Glimpse where you have to sacrifice a unit, just having this on the board, at least threatening those multiple draws if you really get that engine going, can be very good and can be quite scary, really. So you know, it's difficult to say if this is going to see a home day 1, but at least in terms of what new types of decks and just archetypes in general, right? I like to use that term a lot, but new themes like 2-cost spell deck is what we would say from like a Magic perspective, or just what it means a deck that has a lot of 2-cost spells in it, and this is be like your main engine for it. Again, immediately my mind goes to like Ezreal, finding more removal spells so you can target them, level up Ezreal, but we have to wait and see kind of what else is out there. But I'm really curious to see where this one will go. Of course, I have to get the meme out of the way now. I know a lot of people are probably already on this, or I mentioned Teemo, but you know, there's a joke that Maokai, and then you just play, you know, triple Investigator, then your opponent only has 1 turn to come about. So no, I don't think this will actually be good. I did want to take this moment to acknowledge that, at least me personally, so most likely, unless there's something insane in Bilgewater, on the 28th, I will be starting with a Maokai list, and I think PNZ and Shadow Isles is just the most obvious combination to start with because you have all these stalling effects that you need within those 2 regions, but we'll see what else comes about. But again, I don't imagine Investigator will make the cut for the list, but I do say that it's really cute when you get to, you know, mill out your opponent that way, and it's going to feel good. But definitely, I'm going to pass on this one for now, but I can see where some people might be pretty excited for it. And with that, that is PNZ with Vi coming in and getting us our, you know, second to last champion. Now we have Ionia left to go, which, spoiler, is going to be Lee Sin, and he does have Challenger apparently, but the rest of the mechanics we don't quite know yet. So here again is the infograph, all the cards you want. I post this on Twitter, it's in the Discord, you can find this even on Reddit. I've been trying to post there now as well because people seem to really appreciate this. So what did you guys think of these spoilers? Again, this means on Wednesday we'll have another video for Ionia, and I'm very excited to kind of finish this off. So that means as early as Thursday, we might finally see the new region and finally see what those, the theme is, right? Because we know what Demacia does and PNZ, but we don't really have what that overall or overarching theme is for Blightwater yet. And I really, really, really want to know what that is. So I'm looking pretty forward to it, at least on Thursday. Again, they may make us wait till Friday if they do like a cinematic and then cards, but the end of next week, we'll be having a lot more discussions around, what's good or what's not. And with that, I know I've been saying this in the last couple of videos, but I'm finally almost done with the Callista video, which again is going to be a Callista Elise aggro list, which is very much like the Mark of Zekrom or the Hecarim and Zed deck of old, but that's about a month and a half ago. So I'm very excited to record this, and I'm doing it right after this video, so it should be up by tomorrow. After you watch this video, it'll be up the next day, so I'm really looking forward to that. You can look for that video on Monday should everything go well. So with that, I'm out. I hope you guys enjoyed these first look at spoiler for the next set. Again, PNZ out of the way. One more to go before we get to the next region, and it's going to be very exciting. On the 28th, we all get to see what new cards and what new decks people put together. So, of course, please make sure to subscribe for future Legends of Runeterra content. And until then, I'll see you next time. Cheers.